In this video, I want to talk about two bank stocks. Now, I know that the bank stocks have been beaten up pretty bad lately, and there's been a lot of debacle going on in that area of the world, which is, kind of possibly an opportunity for us if we can identify some banks that aren't having that much trouble. Now, two banks that come to mind for me, and I've been watching, are KeyBank and Zion Bank. Now, I want to bring you to the Zion Bank first and tell you why this is my top choice. The reason I like Zion Bank is if you come in here and look at this just from a technical standpoint, I have some fundamental information here for you that I want to tell you a little bit about. But before we get into the fundamental information, let's talk about the technical information. So we got the little break here, another little break. We had the big fall off that everybody's been watching. But now the market's been going sideways. It gave us this beautiful little shelf, right? This little kind of a little wedge or triangle formation, as you can see in here as we come in across with our areas of resistance across the top, support across the bottom. And then the market dropped out the bottom. Now, if you look at this from an accumulation distribution model for the Wyckoff theory, this is a classic spring formation, right? This is a classic spring, a Wyckoff spring. So if we draw our little accumulation zone across here from the top of this triangle wedge formation down to the bottom, you can see that this nice little accumulation zone comes out the bottom with this beautiful little spring, right? This is what we call a Wyckoff spring. Now, we're not going to be sure, hindsight's 2020, and we're not sure this is going to be a Wyckoff spring. The market could certainly turn and fall and continue down and give us another, as we oftentimes talk about, a second accumulation zone down in this region here, right? We could get another accumulation down here. But if this is the case and this becomes a spring and this market starts to rally from here and starts to hold this position, and the reason I think we might do that, hold this position, is because if we come into the weekly chart, you can see that the market is right down here in this common area price. So down to where the market has fallen before, you can see if we come down to this previous zone right here, this was the low clear back in, March of 2020. So that's how far this market came down. It came down, tested it, never closed below that line, and now it's starting to rally once again. So I believe this is a good location for this market to start an accumulation stage, start to rally once again, and start looking for this market to come up and test some of these other previous areas of support or resistance in this case. So right in here would be a nice area of resistance. So this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this market to bounce out of here and start to rally from this point forward. Now, if we come down to the daily chart again, this is what we're looking for right down in here. Now, again, I'm anticipating a rise in price. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. We could definitely get it to come down in here and then have to wait for this rise in price. But nonetheless, this is an opportunity. And the reason I believe that Zion Bank is a good opportunity from the fundamental side, and that I don't think they'll go out of business like some of the other banks have done, is because it's a little regional bank and it's based out of Utah. It's primarily owned by the Mormons. It is a publicly traded company, but their majority shareholder, it is basically known as a Mormon LDS church-owned business. And so just think about that. The Mormon church has a 100, and they say it's bigger than that now, possibly doubled in price since the last numbers were said. So let's say $200 billion, maybe $100 billion, $150 billion hedge fund. Just cash sitting there, chilling in the stock market. $150 to $200 billion sitting in the hedge fund. Do you think they're going to let their little bank run out of money? Or do you think they'll maybe, if something goes wrong, they'll infuse a little bit of money just so they don't get a black eye? Because the last thing the Mormons want is a black eye to say that their financial institution, their Zion's Bank, right, is going out of business or having financial problems. They don't want the Lord's church to have financial problems, so they would keep it solvent. And that's just a little inside information that I might add to kind of what's going on here with Zion's Bank. So I think it's probably a pretty safe bet that we could put some money into Zion's Bank and not feel like our money is at risk of being lost, okay? Because it is backed by that church that has $100 to $200 billion just chilling there in cash in a hedge fund. So the next one I want to talk about is KeyBank. Now, KeyBank's another local, Western bank, very popular here in Utah where we're at. I have an account with KeyBank, and they've been a great company and treated me very well over the years. And you can see we got basically that same pattern coming in here. We got the mathematical model. We've also got the hard trend line going into that little shelf. Almost basically the same exact pattern that we saw over on Zion's Bank, with that nice little drop down in here, coming down, testing this previous low that we had down in here in this region, giving us this common area, or these common numbers down in here, as David Duty would call them, the common number area, this pullback. So as this market's dropped down in here, again, if we come in and take a look at this from the Wyckoff theory, we're going to get a nice little area of accumulation right through here. This is our spring. And then again, nothing says that this market can't drop and come down and create another zone down in here where we would have to wait and go through another accumulation stage and start to rally once again. But nonetheless, KeyBank is one of those small regional banks that fared very well during the previous bank problems. They didn't have any problems. They managed their money well. They're a very conservative bank here in the Mountain West, and this is another bank that I think that we could put some money into if we wanted to. Now, where they travel almost dollar for dollar, you might just want to pick Zions Bank, or you might just want to pick KeyBank for one reason or the other. But my first choice pick would be Zions Bank, just because they are backed by a $100 billion hedge fund, or an organization that has a $100 million hedge fund. And I don't think they'd want the black eye of having their bank go out of business. And they would, they would fund it, I think, if something started to look a little shaky. And so I like Zions Bank, and I'm adding some money in there. I'm buying some Zions Bank, starting to accumulate. And if we have to wait for it to go through a second accumulation, no big deal. This is going to be a longer term investment, and away we go. If this thing breaks this channel here and to the rally side, you might want to come in and consider some options. We could come down and look at a 100 or a 75-day option. You can see they're not very expensive. $635. We'd come in here and buy an at the money call for $635, and we could start picking up some options. If it did drop down into this region here, we'd then dollar cost average, pick up another option as it started to look like it was going to rally out of this zone. Dollar cost average are 2 long positions in Zions Bank. And that's my suggestion for today. If you have any questions, please let me know.